Hi, this is Norman Buchwald from Chabot College Library. I am welcoming you to how to do research for your speech assignment. What is most important to remember is that library resources are available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week via electronic resources. However, the physical library, its summer hours are Monday through Thursdays, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The one exception being on Juneteenth, as the college is closed for the holiday. Let's begin by introducing you to the library research guide for your assignment. So this is the library research guide, and its direct URL to get to this guide is, its web address that is libraryguides.chabotcollege.edu/C lowercase OMM, numeral digit 1, capital E, then lowercase ISENBERG, or libraryguides.chabotcollege.edu/Comm1 Eisenberg, which is the last name of your instructor. Now, if you don't have that web address in front of you, and say you're here at the college homepage, which is chabotcollege.edu, how to first get to the library homepage is underneath the middle, well, I'm close to the middle of the options, of the pull down options of the homepage. Make sure you select academics and student support, that is, and then select under support and resources on the lower left, library. That will take you to the library homepage. Now, as tempting as it is to immediately do a search in our search box right here, which would search our books and ebooks, or go to databases and then try to select a database, which if you go to our A to Z list, as you can see, there are 85, which would definitely seem a lot. Instead of doing that, from the library homepage, go to the Research Guides pull-down menu and select Library Orientation Guides. Then scroll down until you get to Communication Studies 1, followed by the last name of your instructor, and that will take you directly to this guide. Now, when you are going through this guide, it's important to remember as you're going through navigation to not use the top screen or this navigation screen, which is the library in general, but underneath the title, which you'll see on all of these pages where it says Communication Studies 1, then in parentheses, the last name of instructor, which is Eisenberg, followed by Comm1, it's divided into these various different pages via these tabs. So the home page for it is called Comm1. There is a page that talks about where you can go to select and browse topics in case you are not sure what to talk about in your persuasive speech as of yet. There is reference, which I strongly encourage you to definitely use any of our reference resources, whether it's individual titles if you're still exploring, or in the middle where it says reference books and databases to search, or on the right, the rare instance where I would be encouraging you to go to the web at large, thus using either Google or DuckDuckGo or any other web search engine, is to look up, current codes or policies or laws or legislation related to either the United States government, California, city level, say Hayward or Oakland or Alameda, et cetera, and so forth. That's where you can go to find that. Although these different guides will immediately lead you to those particular areas. How to formulate a search statement. This is very important, so you need to understand how to combine terms effectively and provide what are called Boolean connectors, or more importantly, remember the word and. So no more than, say, usually, if you don't know what your subject heading, your concept is, usually no more than 2 words a term, something as concrete as possible, such as an example here, minimum wage and United States economy. Good is one of those, like good can mean very different things. So maybe a word like benefits or positive impacts, as you see down here, would be better. An understanding of the types of sources, for example, internet may still be good, along with television, radio, for a news event that happens the same day. But if, say, you wanted to look up, say, something regarding what happened, say, last weekend, like either the No Kings protest or the unfortunate political assassinations of 2 legislators, which happened just a few days ago, it would be newspapers you'd probably be looking. Eventually, magazines. And by the time we get to scholarly journals, we're talking usually about events that happened a year previous. Now, for historical perspective, you can definitely go back behind something that might be current, whether, say, a scholarly journal or a book, but that's important. Our databases page, which we'll especially be eventually spending the most time for because of how to search databases effectively. Library catalog to search both our print collection as well. It will also lead you to ebooks, and this is going to be important because sometimes what you're looking for that's especially fairly more current than another will usually be an ebook over a print book. Places where to go with the World Wide Web, and on the lower right, some smart tips of how to handle Google to avoid some of the algorithm problems that happen with the search engine, among other things. Places where to go to cite, the MLA and the APA guides, we have quick handouts linked from here. Noodle Tools is our citation generation tool, which if you haven't created account yet, I strongly recommend you do. What's important is that you create your account through this link, not Noodle Tools out there, because it needs to be through the library. It needs to know where you belong to. Otherwise, it'll either start charging you a subscription or providing you some unnecessary ads, which you want to avoid. And then the last one, which I'm definitely not going to have time to talk about today, so this will be it, is where to go to prepare speeches, as well, some tips to it, as well as where to see examples of such speeches are available. Although I'm underneath reference, there is a quick, nice little one-page guideline to help guide you about preparation for public speaking in general. And so I strongly recommend that you take a look at that quick study. It's not, actually, it's more like 2 pages, probably, but a few pages. But it's definitely a strong, quick place for you to go for everything to help you with your preparation. So let me first begin by talking about accessing our materials when you're off campus. Since you're especially an online class, in most cases, you'll probably be doing your work off campus. And so what's important for you to know and understand is how to get into our various databases, which basically requires when you click on a database link, you will come across a entry screen that will ask for your WID number and a password. Your password is your My Portal password. If you have not logged into My Portal as of yet, and you've been using ClassWeb, get yourself into My Portal as soon as possible, because ClassWeb is going away on July 1st. is the date that we've been given. Maybe it might be a few days after that, but you want to make sure that you're not only able to log into my portal, but um, you're also able to, of course, get into our databases and other elements that require that general single sign on screen that will come up. Now, the My Portal password is, well, if you're not sure, well, what's the difference? I'll tell you in a nutshell. It is not your class web password, which is, your 6-digit PIN. That is no more. There is going to be no more 6-digit PIN. And it is not the password that you use to get into Canvas. But in almost all other instances, it is the My Portal password of how you access everything related to the college, which includes the library databases. Now, if you get an error screen and says forgot password and you click on it and you didn't get your forgot password notice, which by the way would be going to your zone mail, then I'm just going to type it on here. Actually, let me create a Google document just very quickly so you can see this. If you never got any code or password reset that's coming from, usually it's called Otka. That's the name of the single sign-on company. So that's what would usually show up in your email. You want to contact Help Zone at clpccd.org. And within a day or two, you will, if not sooner, you will, however, if it's over the weekend, like say, especially this weekend I'm recording, that it's a longer weekend, which starts at Thursday and ends on Sunday. So you would not get, if you have something happen to you on the Thursday and you went to Help Zone, you're not going to get a response until that following Monday. There are alternative methods to get into most of our databases I'm going to be showing you today. So underneath the homepage for the Library Research Guide, on the lower right is how to get into databases off campus, including alternative means. Click on that. You then type in your WID number and your password. And on top, it has the instructions on how to log in the database. By the way, this is what your single sign-on screen would look like. And then, if you still cannot get in the meantime, to get into databases like Articles Plus and databases in EBSCOhost and databases in Gale and databases in ProQuest, or to view films on demand, what's listed there is a separate type of URL. You go to that, and then on the right, you enter the username and password that's provided to you on the right side of that screen. So you do have access to most of our materials. There are some databases like, say, JSTOR, for example, that unfortunately you will have to wait until you hear back from Help Zone to help you reset your My Portal password and help you get into our databases, let alone be able to get into My Portal itself. So with that big, long introduction, let's now talk about doing some research. Now, in most cases, the last place that you're going to, unless you're looking for like a particular policy, especially law or legislation or code from a certain state or city or United States government or even another country around the world, with those exceptions, you'll want to access materials from our library databases. You do not want to use Google or DuckDuckGo. Now, I'm going to, underneath on this YouTube, provide you a link that especially goes into detail. What are the problems of using an internet search engine versus using a library database? But in a nutshell, you need to understand that search engines are .coms. They are commercial entities. Their purpose is to make money from your research and your accounts. And that includes leading you to commercial customized algorithms. Those are those mathematical formulas that determine what appeared towards the top of your search results. And by habit, it records your search results to get an idea of maybe what type of person you might be in terms of your interests and whatnot, to eventually hope lead you to buy something with their related clients, whether it's like for Google ads for advertisement or something else such as that. To further compound the problem, the customized algorithms have been manipulated by what are called these third-party elements that create what are nicknamed bots. Those are those commercial programs from this outside entity that take advantage of those algorithms to try to lead you somewhere. And probably the most infamous, if you remember all the fake news stories, is to lead you to deliberately misinformation or cloaked, what are called cloaked websites that can often contain maybe disturbing biased or racist or other types of dubious quote information unquote that would take you away from what are the facts, what are the science, what is the actual research that has been done, that has been vetted, and that has been used, say, such as the peer-reviewed process, for example, which I will talk about in a little bit, versus just searching willy-nilly on the web and hoping that whatever comes up is, quote, good, quote unquote, and reliable, unquote. And so you'd rather be able to access a lot of our library databases where especially published information from newspapers, magazines, and journals and ebooks are all available to you without, say, having to put in credit card information for either temporarily seeing something free or more often than not actually having to purchase an article or an ebook that you actually would get the same thing from the library databases. So in other words, start with the library webpage as your first point on the web versus, say, Google or DuckDuckGo or any commercial search engine. Start with the library homepage and eventually search in the library databases first. Okay, if you need help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the one main exception would be if your password isn't working for, because your MyPortal password isn't working, is we have a chat box listed on the homepage here. And it's also available on a lot of our pages, including our databases on the top right here, to put in your name. This is very important, your correct email address. If your email address has an error or a mischaracter on it, there's not going to be any follow-up. And that follow-up can be important, even if your question seems to temporarily have been answered with the guest librarian. Type in your question, and we have librarians from around the world who will help you. Most of them are actually from the United States, even in the middle of the night. And they have access to our databases that's provided, behind the scenes from us for them to help you. And then if it's between the hours of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., the librarian on duty, and during the summer, there's usually, most cases, one of us, sometimes there might be two of us. We will answer your questions right from the reference desk as if you were in front of us on the reference desk, but we'll help you remotely. And so if you're saying, I can't remember the name of the database or what Norman said on the orientation, or I can't remember what where to exactly go, or I do want to use EBSCOhost, but I'm not getting anything from my searches. Can you please help me? We will help you with all sorts of questions such as that. So please remember to use our chat reference. I'm only going to go over select topic briefly. Hopefully, in most of your cases, you already have a good idea what your topic is already at this point. But if you don't, what's nice is, especially if you notice in the browse topics and databases in the center, some of these are situated so that you first start by broad categories. So say, ooh, I want to talk about education. And then, I don't know, from there are some suggested topics on here. Let's say that you're especially interested in college debt. Ooh, I'd really want to talk about college debt. That's definitely a big important thing. And here you go. You have your detailed article about college debt. It tells you what the current situation is at the time of this was published. So you notice that you see President Biden towards the top. That's because this was written in 2024. And listed below are all of these parts. And so some of these will even include more, but we have like historical chronology, footnotes. And one thing we don't have, as other pages do, is a pro and con type of argument that you can start to look at and take in consideration. So there's definitely a lot that you can get at in these individual databases. CQ Researcher, unfortunately, by the way, is one of those exceptions where if your MyPortal password is not working, you unfortunately cannot access at this point. So let's say if that doesn't work for you at this moment, well, Issues and Controversies, which does have an alternative. This also shows you places that you can go. And so you can immediately explore here under for whether it's in the news. You could go to all issues to browse issues in general. And you can see on this page, there's a whole slew of different topics. Let's see. We have just looking childhood obesity, climate change, digital libraries, extreme weather, factory workers, gay rights, hip hop culture. There's all different sorts of places you can go to explore to discuss your topic, as you can see on there. And then let me go back here for a second. Let's say that we focus on one of these. So let's say that you're especially interested in the anti-racism movement, for example. This then leads us to different topics. So anti-racism and DEI is definitely something that's currently being discussed. You have here introductions for support and opponents and a whole history of where things are going on in the anti-racism movement, or and sometimes which is part of the DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement. And as you can see, you have a lot of media information here, just like in CQ Researcher, as well as various different what supporters argue, what opponents argue. Definitely provides a lot of good meat, definitely for your persuasive speech. So this is definitely a good starting point. So even if you have an idea of what you may want to talk about, this may be a good place to begin. Likewise here in opposing viewpoints, let's say, ooh, I want to talk about social media. And listed here, you notice you have featured viewpoints in general. Oh, we have a lot here. We may actually need to eventually narrow this down a little bit, but it's definitely an excellent place to go to explore. So especially the center of browse topics and databases. So those examples I've shown you are where you can go to definitely explore. You can also do this to a certain point in Gale ebooks. There's some broad categories here, basically by disciplines that you can investigate, or you can just look at hot topics and then investigate some of these in here to get an idea, and then start exploring a particular encyclopedia. So let's say that you want to write about drug use and abuse. So you go here, and here's opinions throughout history, and here is a reference book that gives all different sorts of important moments and key areas in history on this topic. So there's definitely a lot of places you can go to explore. Some of these require you to start searching. So, I mean, let's say here, we entered, say, climate change, and notice that some suggestions come up that we can also include. Right now, we'll just include climate change by itself. Select search. And in this case, it will lead you to various different reference book entries and places that you can go for starting points. So definitely there's a lot of good places you can go to explore, even if you already have an idea in your topic. This isn't a play, this doesn't hurt to start exploring here. Once you know more, then you can go to reference. Now, the left is an example of if you still want to explore and have ideas, in case you're still stumped, and some good general starting points are there on the left. But in the center here, especially after the public speaking, under reference books and databases, is a good place to begin exploring to get reference entries. So let's say, oh, I especially want to talk about policy statements or public policy on climate change. So we enter a search here in climate change, and here we have all different sorts of entries that we can explore. And some of these can have different angles, such as global climate change, global at large. You might want to instead focus maybe on the United States, although climate change is definitely, probably one could argue, definitely more of a global thing. And then you notice that listed below is the type of encyclopedia. So environmental science in context is going to have slightly different information than when ideology trumps science, why we question the experts of everything from climate change to vaccinations. So what you get in these entries are going to be a little bit different per entry. These entries are usually more meaty than what you would find, say, Encyclopedia Britannica. They're pages long. They are written by the same type of authors who write the scholarly journal articles you read, except that it's you, the student, who are the audience. And instead of automatically assuming you know and understand different things, it definitely will provide you with key introductory things, including concepts and some general understanding that, say, someone who reads a scholarly journal on environmental science would already know all these things. So it's definitely an important starting point to go on as you are building your case pro or con on a topic, or definitely to argue for or argue against your particular topic. And so you notice that each entry, go to another one here, is not only pages long, but they're divided different parts. What's listed on the right is very important because it gives you related subjects. So you can click on these to explore more. I would also jot some of these down because sometimes in your research, you might want to use a different search term, a different concept to find different things. And you notice on the right here, it says more like this. It'll lead you to other encyclopedia entries that are similar to the one you're looking at. So it's definitely a good place to, also a good starting point for further exploration. On the right, of course, are links to, these are on the World Wide Web at large, where to go to research and find federal laws, California laws, et cetera, and so forth. So it's a good starting point as to where to go. And then on the right, lower right here, is called statistics sources. And the only warning I'm going to give you is statistics sources is that there is this tendency from time to time where information seems to unfortunately either temporarily disappear or permanently disappear from government websites. And but it does also go to a lot of nonprofit organizations. So you can enter a search term here, such as I don't know, say homeschooling, for example. And I actually didn't lead us to anything. So let's broaden our search to education and maybe publics by contrast. And so it's leading us to key statistics on public and school. By the way, I mean, if your topic's on homeschooling, you can use this as a contrast depending on what you're talking about in terms of whether pro or con homeschooling on what the statistics say for public schooling. And you notice that for each entry, sometimes there's multiple entries listed here. And what you would do from there, and I recommend the fastest, is copy and paste the name of the source. That's the name of the statistics table. Go into a search engine. This is one of those rare times where going to a search engine would make sense. And it looks like it may still be here. And here we go directly to the statistics table itself, which would be a big PDF. Sometimes it's a big report. Sometimes it's just one chart table. And that will take you to the statistics that you need to find to further use and back up your speech topic. Search statements. Now, the important thing to understand here is you need to come up with concepts and then combine them. So in this example, which is about minimum wage in the United States economy, first think of your concepts. Think of some similar words, usually synonyms or related words. Try not to think in most cases more than 2 words a concept. Try as much as you can to avoid, like say adjectives, focus on nouns unless the adjective describing the noun like a living wage says something that's important and key. In other words, as solid and as concrete as possible, come up with your terms. Then in a database window and combine your terms. Then when you come across results that look promising, take notice of what the subject terms are. Now in the EBSCO database, if you select filter and then subject, you can see the list of subjects and then say, okay, I want to checkbox this and this to limit my search. And then when you come across an article looks promising, listed below the title of the article and the abstract, there's some subject headings. Jot down some of the subject headings, and if they appear as links, click on some of those links, play around with that, because that's going to be the important method of finding relevant quality articles and ebooks on your topics. I know that, I mean, sometimes you might have like over 100,000 results like you would in Google, but the way to narrow and limit it down that you can do in a database, unlike Google, is focus on those indexing terms, those key subject headings. And then if it's this and that, as you see here, we make sure that the word and appears in between each of our search terms. Now in this example, we just put each concept on one line, but if all you have in a database is one line, put and in between each of your terms. And that will, in most cases, lead you to productive results. As I said before, and I think I already pretty much stated it, the types of sources in terms of time is going to be important in understanding why you were able to find something or not. I mean, I remember helping students back in March 2020, for example, where I was remote because we had a pandemic. And there were students that were wondering why they couldn't find any journal articles on COVID-19. Well, it's because COVID-19 was brand new at the time. They could find magazine articles, but it was too early to find journal articles on COVID-19. Now, of course, there's journal articles and there's books and there's ebooks all about the COVID-19. But, it took a few years for us to get to this point where we have this big abundance of information, where back then we still didn't even understand fully how it was being spread. I mean, for the longest time, we were told not to touch anything. And it turned out that it was more airborne than it was through touch. But it took like about a year before we really pretty much had that understanding. So, I mean, time and everything is definitely important. Then there's scholarly versus what is called popular. Now, a magazine article that comes from, like, say, People or Time magazine, or even something that might seem discipline oriented, but really isn't, like Psychology Today, those are for the general lay reader. So those type of publications usually have ads. They're written by journalists who are not necessarily experts on the topic that they're talking about, except, they're getting facts and they're getting their news story together. And it goes through the screen usually of one editor versus, say, a bunch of specialists who know the topic that's at hand. And that's what constitutes, and of course, you have no works cited list at the end or no references list at the end. It's basically a news story or sometimes a general interest story that is available to the general public. By contrast, you have your scholarly resources. Now, scholarly resources will usually be found in journal articles especially, but also in most of our ebooks. And how those work is that, first of all, the author is a specialist in their area. They have master's or even PhD degrees in their field. They are writing for authors that are also in the same field, so something from sociology will be from other scholars in the sociological area. Those are the readers. And then, instead of just one editor, articles are sent to basically a different people, what are called referees, or sometimes it's an editorial board. And these have the same specialty, not only in the same field as the author, but maybe even more specialized, specifically what the author is talking about or the type of research they're doing. They're also experts on the research. And this number of people, not just one, actually look over the article, determine that the research they did is good and sound, and thus ready for publication. So that's the difference between, say, a scholarly versus popular. And of course, a scholarly would have references, works cited, or a list of references at the end. There's definitely all sorts of research that they have done for their article at hand. So now, with all this out of the way, let's talk about searching databases. So on the databases page, I have a number of different databases listed. Usually we would list Academic Search Complete on top, and for some of your topics, that may be where you may want to go to. But otherwise, because this is about policies that are related to either things social or political, we have Social Index of Full Text and Political Science Complete listed on top. We then have Articles Plus, which is even broader than Academic Search Complete because it also includes ebooks that you can find from there. And then specialized, such as Environment Complete for environmental issues, Sonal Complete for health-centered issues. It's a nursing database, but it's also a health-centered database. So anything related to health professions, such as, say, vaccines, for example, that's where you would want to go to find the science and the research that is done. Education Research Complete for education. I've listed opposing viewpoints and context here again because journal articles do pop up in that database. Then master file complete, if you need to find those magazine articles, that's where I would recommend that you would go. And then further down below, we have a government documents database. Now, it's probably not as rich as maybe what you can find on the internet or as current, definitely, but it's definitely a place you could go. Don't let the military in front thwart you. It's basically all sorts of government documents and publications. And since the military is part of the government, that's what's included there. And then listed down below on the left are diversity databases. So especially some of your policies may be related to either issues of racism or immigration or of particular populations in general that are either racially oriented, ethnic oriented, about women or men or LGBTQ, such as transgender, which is definitely a big topic at this time. These are places that you can go to look for that. And then, of course, we have online, we have newspapers databases and online books in the center. So let's start exploring by actually searching into a database. So let's click on Search Index with full text. And then let's enter our search terms. So let's say that our topic is about, I don't know, I don't use homeschooling as an example. What about, let's see, what else is hot these days? Well, I mentioned transgender. I'm transgender and let's say, okay, transgender athletes, since that's usually the hot button that people usually point to, especially for controversy. And so, as you can see here, it leads us to many peer-reviewed scientific articles about transgender athletes. Imagine doing this search on the web at large. You probably would come across maybe some newspaper editorials if you're lucky, but probably would be persons' blogs, maybe some heated rhetoric, maybe from one side or another on this topic. And you wouldn't be getting this actual science as you would here in these actual journal articles. So we scroll down and let's say, okay, we're just interested in intersex and transgender athletes and access to effective remedies. That sounds like a promising title. Here is our expert author with her credentials. Here is the name of the journal called the Wisconsin Journal of Law, Gender, and Society. So warning, there's going to be a lot of legalese language in that article. So you might also need to have a dictionary or a thesaurus available to you online and another tab to help you along. We have our abstract. This is going to be our biggest time saver because this tells you in a nutshell what the article's about. You don't want to find out on page 12, oh, this isn't what I was looking for at all. Well, that's going to waste a lot of your time. But if you read the abstract to see what the article's about in a nutshell, that will save you a lot of time. And then listed below are various different subject headings. Transgender athletes, by the way, is a subject heading. So that's important to know. So that you can definitely be very specific in this case, where in other cases you might have to play around with other terms. Other subjects that look promising for other articles look like transphobia, for example. Gender is definitely the big abstract term. Trans women, I'm sure there's a trans men, transgender people, intersex people. Start jotting down particular subject headings that look promising as you go through. Let's say that you were very much interested in the first article. So you first click on that and it lets you know what full text options are available. Now, in some cases, you're going to see something listed like full text finder, and it's like, you scroll down and it's like, where is the article? Well, the answer, first of all, in most cases, is that your answer, especially in the EBSCO database, is towards the top. And if it says full text finder, you click on that, and then it will provide you a link to different databases that are supposed to have that article. And then you click on that and go there. Or in this case, because it says it's PDF full text, we'll click on that. And that takes us directly to the article. Now, here is what I strongly recommend when you get to an article, even if it turns out you end up deciding you don't want to use it for your speech later on, but you don't know that yet, and you want to quickly gather and have some articles together on your disposal. Yeah, go ahead and click the download button and download it onto your computer or your smartphone or pad. But I also recommend clicking on this arrow which says share. And what you do next of the share is, it by default will lead you to either create a link to share or to a Google Drive or OneDrive. Click on email on the right. I always strongly recommend you email your articles to yourself. Then type in your email address. Then click on send. Now, for some of you who might remember how EBSCO used to look like, you might be saying, well, wait a second, wasn't there something regarding citation? Yeah, we give a citation. Well, it currently doesn't do that at that time. EBSCO says that they eventually will add that to setting it as an email, but it's not as of yet. So what you do instead is look for this quotation marks. Click on that. Select the style manual that you want to correspond to. Let's say that it's APA 7th. And then listed below is the suggested citation. Now, one of the reasons why I picked APA over MLA is APA does not seem to follow the rules of whether you have something capitalized or not, say in a title. So while this example here says intersex and transgender athletes and access to effective remedies, transgender is supposed to not be capitalized, athletes is not supposed to be capitalized, access is not supposed to be effective, and remedies are not supposed to be capitalized according to APA 7. So it's important that you compare with what you have if you copy and paste for this method. However, and I currently don't have this open, so it's not going to work for me during this. But if you click on Export Citation and then select Export to Noodle Tools and you have Noodle Tools currently open, it will then be ready to send that to you. Now, even then, you're still going to have to play around with this because it looks like, oh, right now it's making an assumption of MLA, but I suspect APA would have a similar issue. Notice that all the words of every letter is capitalized. That's a big, big no-no. So you'll still have to clean that up even if you export it to Noodle Tools. But it is a wonderful, nifty trick to have available to you as you are putting your research together and organizing it. So I will talk about Noodle Tools towards the end, but I strongly, strongly recommend that you get yourself a Noodle Tools account. Okay, so that's what the experience is in terms of searching. Okay, we had 94 results, which is manageable, I would argue. But let's say you want to narrow it down further. So there are various different ways we can narrow it down. We can narrow it down, for example, to peer review, just the scholarly journal articles only. By the way, don't select peer-reviewed and cover story at the same time. Cover story is referring to magazine articles. If you select both at the same time, you're going to get nothing because they're mutually exclusive. You can determine my published date. Let's say you're especially interested in the past 12 months versus the past 5 years. Although when it comes to journal articles, I would recommend 5 years because some journals have what is called an embargo period that can be 2 years, sometimes as much as 5 years before they start showing up in a database. This is a publisher's method of still, I guess, what they would call trying to make money with scholarly educational institutions in the meantime. You could also do custom range if you want a particular date to a particular date, and that is, you fill that out, those dates out. You select the databases you want to search. Right now it only says social index because we only have that highlighted in our search. There are ways that we can expand it to more databases, and I'll talk about that in a moment. We can limit it to the type of source type, but most important here is major subjects. And let's say especially you're interested in, I don't know, transgender people as the main focus of this in terms of the transgender and I mean how it's affecting them. Let's say they're especially interested in highlighting that. Select that and then click apply, which for whatever reason, I'm not able to do that right now, but that is what you would do next. And that would limit your search. Let me try that again. Major subjects, transgender people. There we go. Now apply highlight. I don't know why that happened. And that would limit our search down to 18. So remember this filters. This is definitely an excellent way for you to limit it. In the meantime, there are expressways, full text, which is by default. If you undo full text, then you're going to come across articles that are not available in our databases, so I don't recommend that. But so keep that selected, but you can select it to peer reviewed here. You can select it to just the past 12 months or 5 years here. Notice 12 months, there's only 2. I told you that there is time lag. So it's important to understand that. And then the source type are available for you to quickly limit your search. You can, of course, also always add additional terms, such as, I don't know anyone's, if anyone thinks that there's prejudice towards transgender athletes or the other way around, that's another way that you can do that here. And you can add that. You can also expand your search. So here's probably the best way to do it. Click the title of the database and notice that it gives you a whole list of databases you can search. Let's say I also want to search academic search complete. I definitely want to, if I remember it, LGBTQ plus source for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer journals. That would definitely be probably important for this type of topic. And maybe psychology and behavioral sciences collection. Maybe we'll add that too. So we select all that, select. Reperform our search, which is transgender athletes and prejudice. And that expands our search to 29. So you can definitely play around to both limit and expand your search through this method. So this experience is very similar in others. So for example, let's say we're environment complete. And I wanted to, let's say, find articles, scientific articles on wind power. I enter wind power as I search term, and because I'm in environment complete, oh boy, there's a ton. So here we might want to limit maybe the past 12 months, even not even the past 5 years, to limit it down and what's peer reviewed. And ooh, we still have a lot. So we may want to play around, maybe go to all filters and go to major subjects down here. And we may especially be interested in, say, wind power plants, which limits it to 322, and then focus on the wind power plants angle to then go in and explore. And then again, like I said, remember to look at your title, look at what's below, look at your abstract, your brief summary of what the article's about, your big time saver. Look at your various different subject headings to help you with your research. And then once again, when you find something promising, make sure that you go to the full text. And then, as I said, always by default, at minimum, definitely email the article yourself. And then click send. Now, if I go to my email here, you notice that the first one has already shown up here. So I'm always on make sure you double check, and remember to double check your spam folder when you check your email folder. So that's basically experience of doing searching. Now, If you're in an ebook, I'm going to show this because it's a little bit tricky. And so well, what do you do once you get to an ebook level? So let's say that our topic here is about waste management. So again, we have all different types of searches here. And we select search and we're searching our ebooks, or it comes up across randomly if we're searching articles plus. We can have, so we have waste management, a reference handbook. Okay. So you notice down here, it shows our access options there. Otherwise, if we go to the title, we still need to go to our access options to go to. And it's like, well, I especially want to find some key area in it. Where can I find that? So in the top right, you select search within. And let's say that you're especially interested in recycling, I don't know, computers. So we enter that and we look here on top. Oh, electronic waste. I'm going to click on that. And here we go on a section that, according to their index here, talks about electronic waste. So it's a whole little mini section on here. And then let's say, okay, I'm going to go back to that here. So that look like on page 73. So let's say that I wanted to email that. Well, first of all, let's see if we can. And lo and behold, wait a second. For share, all I provide is create link. It doesn't even provide download. What is going on here? So this is very important. I'm going to go back here and notice what it says here in terms of what can be down. Now, even though I didn't see that option here, it says that we can download, print, or email and save 50 pages. So it should have allowed us to do that. I don't know why that happened. Usually if that comes up, that means we're not able to. So I may need to contact the vendor and explore why that didn't work, because otherwise, if we wanted to, that was on page 73. Okay, here it is here. No, that's only allowing us to email. And if we email that, it's not going to send the entire book. It's only going to select the thing. So I do need to let me see if it's different. If I go to EPUB, that's the other option from PDF. Let's see if it provides that here. And no, I'm definitely going to contact the vendor about this, because you should be able to email to yourself certain pages. And we would have then emailed what was in the section of electronic waste. So I'll explore what's going on here. Let's see if, for this other one, if the similar thing happens here. I'm just going to quickly go in and see. I'm just going to search for electronic waste rather than my original one. Let's hope there's an item in here. And yeah, here we go, page 108. So let's say that I wanted to no, it's not showing up here. Okay. So it looks like at this moment, unfortunately, we're not able to email pages. So I'm definitely going to contact the vendor about this one, because you should be able to. Oh, wait a second. For this book, it might be different. No, chapters, download, print, email, and save 50 pages allowed. I'm definitely going to contact the vendor about this. So for now, because this may take a while, might take a week or two, if not a month, consider that you can't email stuff. So in this case, you would send the link and then go back to the ebook, and hopefully the ebook won't disappear during the month. There's a reason why I encourage you to email articles to yourself. Sometimes items disappear from databases. It's called aggregation. That means that the publisher currently allows that article, but at some point they can choose to pull it. So I mean, it's something that you need that's the only one drawback sometimes with library databases. That's why I always recommend you email articles to yourself. So that's basically the experience there. For library catalog, This is especially mostly useful for finding books on your topic, and sometimes you might prefer print, which if you do, remember our hours, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Our stacks are located by the reference desk on the main floor on the Performing Arts Center side. And you need to limit to held by library if you only want to find what's available in print. And then you write down what is the call number. That is basically the physical book's address as to where it is located on the shelf. And so you look for that, you find that, and then with your student ID card, which functions as your library card, it's available for a 2-week checkout. But I don't have a student ID. Well, all Monday through Thursday, go to building 700, and within 10 minutes, you'll get your student ID card. That's at Computer Center, which if you're entering from the street side of building 700 will be on your first right on the first floor. And there are very friendly staff that will help you get your student ID card just like that. Make sure you bring your regular ID, driver's license, other information, WID number, that type of thing with you to get that done quickly. Okay, so I promised myself I wasn't going to have this too long, and of course I'm going to be dividing this either by timestamp or chapters. But the last thing I will talk about, which is the citing page, is of course you need to cite your resources and where they came from. And so we do have a quick cheat sheet of APA 7, as well as, even though it says MLA 8, it's pretty much congruent with MLA 9. And those examples where you can go to look at for comparison. But more importantly, I recommend getting a Noodle Tools account. And so you basically sign in with your ID. But you have to have an account first. Otherwise, if you don't, you need to register first and follow all those directions. But once you have your account, you enter that and your password. Oh, maybe it's this one. There we go. And if you don't have a works cited or a project as of yet, you select new project. It's always advanced, so we can make advanced and then APA. And then, of course, we need to give it a title. So studies 1, I'll give it a very generic one. And then if you keep this open as you're searching your databases to then transfer items to there. Or if you have something in print, heaven forbid, or there isn't that option to export from a database, you just simply select on the top right, new source. In this case, it would come from a database or print or in hand, and then follow the type of resource it is. And then fill in all the information, some of which it will tell you whether it's important or not. There's little notations. And that's how you create your works cited guide or your APA, such as this. And then on the top center, and I wish this looked more like a piece of paper as it's supposed to, because it looks a little confusing. So you see this little thing with an arrow on top. That's supposed to represent like a paper or a document being exported. And then you select print export, whether it's to Google Docs or whatnot. And as you can see here, lo and behold, there is our works cited page. So yes, I know this is a lot to cover, and I know you're going to need to go back and see different parts. But if you need any further help, library is open Monday through Thursday, with the exception, of course, of the 19th, June 19th, which is Juneteenth Day. There is a librarian staffed on the ground floor on the Performing Arts Center, and they will be more than happy to help you for any questions you have in finding articles and different resources related to your assignment. If you can't remember how to get to your to your research guide that was created for this course again, remember for the library homepage, it's under research guides, library orientation guides, and scroll down until you get to the title with the last name of your instructor. And that takes you to the guide itself. And then, of course, databases. And most of them, especially the ones I showed you today, are EBSCO. Some look a little bit different. What's important is to remember to email articles to yourself when you can. In the case of ebooks, so, email the link, share the link with yourself. Which, when you click share link, then open up an email, and then make sure you include that URL to go back to that ebook. And one important information I forgot to mention under reference is the Encyclopedia of Associations. If you're especially looking for those nonprofit organizations, they're especially well vetted and well renowned. This is where you go for here. And then let's say it's on climate change. You enter your search term there. And oh, I forgot to do, it's leading me to statistics. I forgot to do this part first, Encyclopedia of Associations, National Organizations, and then climate change. And oh, it led me to statistics sources first, but but it's also going to lead you to Encyclopedia of Associations, and of course there'd be tons of stuff that would crowd with statistics. Let me go back for a second. Oh, up here, climate change. Top right, once you're in the title itself, and now we're at the different organizations, and especially in this day and age where items sometimes may at least temporarily disappear from a government website. At least this is a place where you can go to find things. And and by the way, these nonprofits not only are good at leading you to statistics and other information, but definitely can also let you know what their advocacy is to talk about and strengthen your speech. So yes, I know I gave you a ton of information. My name again is Norman Buchwald. My email address is nbuchwald@chabotcollege.edu. I'm unfortunately retiring after July 31st, but in most cases, your course will probably either have ended or you've done that assignment before then, so feel free to contact me. Otherwise, like I said, there's a librarian available Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Chabot Librarian, whether for chat reference, or you can call on the homepage under Comm1 here. Oh, well, the phone number is 723-7006. I will update this on this page after I talk about today. It'll be underneath welcome, but 510-723-7006 to contact the librarian for phone. And like I said, if it's at 2 a.m. in the night, well, unfortunately can't get help with my portal password problem. For most cases, a guest librarian can help you even at 2 a.m. So we are able to help you with anything you need to help you succeed in putting your for your research, for putting your persuasive speech together and putting your argument together. So thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.